Welcome back to Pushing the Envelope in Premiere Pro. Today we're going to be looking at ways of creating deliverables with different aspect ratios. Frequently, you will be required to deliver a project in multiple aspect ratios. This used to mean creating both 4:3 and 16:9 versions, and now more frequently a film might need 16:9 and 235 scope variants, while online pieces might need square and 9:16 variants. So there are two ways to reach this end goal. One is to start with the output of the master deliverable and crop down from there. This is where the term pan and scan came from, for trying to pan between two objects in a wide frame to make a 4:3 version. If you have the option of revealing more of the image instead of removing portions of the finished image to hit your target aspect ratio, this leads to a much better final product, but requires more preparation and planning earlier in the workflow. You are of course limited to the image size that your camera originally shot, unless you resort to content-aware fill type tools, but deliberately shooting wider imagery with a higher resolution camera gives you much more flexibility with aspect ratios and framing in post. If varying aspect ratios is a big part of your project, the best way to accommodate this is to edit at the source camera resolution and aspect ratio in your master timeline, and not do any permanent framing work there. You can use a matte to simulate your primary aspect ratio, leaving it as the top layer in your editing timeline. The easiest way to make a custom matte is to create a new document in Photoshop at your target resolution. In this case, I'll create one for 1920 by 1080, which happens to be 16:9. Double-click to convert the background into a layer, then Ctrl-Alt-C to change the canvas resolution to your footage and sequence resolution, 5184 by 2916 in my case. Now we zoom out. This should give you a transparent area that you can paint bucket to black. Select and delete the original area in the center, and now you have a matte that you can place over your source footage to see what it'll look like in your output resolution. If this opening is too small to be practical, you can simulate just the aspect ratio and not the resolution. To do this, divide the source width by the aspect ratio, like 2.35, and use the result of that for your initial layer height, following the same steps after that. So we import that into Premiere, select individual layers, now we can drag that into our sequence. We see those black bars that we just added. Once your edit is finished and locked, you then use that sequence as source for new sequences at every aspect ratio you need to deliver. You then frame each shot at every aspect ratio that you need. One way to do this manually is to place the cuts in the subsequence based on a temp copy of the source clips. Down arrow plus Ctrl-K repeatedly will give you all the cuts that you need. You then delete those temp clips. Another way is to run the new Scene Edit Detection function on the subsequence clip. Regardless of how you do it, the result should be a source sequence with all the pixels that you originally shot available, and then that sequence used as source for sequences of clips framed in your target aspect ratios. In this case, we have a 5K source edit sequence, which is every pixel we actually shot. Then we've created a 2K scope delivery sequence and a 16:9 UHD delivery sequence, among others. This allows you to make revisions to the VFX or color in the master source sequence, and the changes should propagate to all the other versions. Eventually, these sequences will just be the starting points for more complex workflows that we will explore in the next few episodes. For more detailed info, check out techwithmikefirst.com.